look at the extension on the load flex, the load carrier part on the forwarder that have gotten stuck in an extended position that we don't really use at all, and on this old machine I think the loads are big enough
Ja, du får
without the
prova att ta steget före
extensions.
hur som helst.
Back when they had a functioning scale on it, it was probably a good addition if doing lightweight material, but we're not using it. There are two like mushroom pins, one on each side, that holds it in place. You can see there's plenty of play in everything here. These lives on borrowed time, but they're very nice to be able to widen the load area when doing clear cutting. We decided to make a tool to be able to spin those mushroom pins. I tried, there's a big nut at the top holding things together also, that will cause issues later, but I looked to see if that nut had any movement, but the thing inside there that the nut is attached to spins also. It's not possible to get a socket in there because it's kind of mangled. The lower pin at least came out without too much issue. I put it back in there during disassembly. Some heat was added because the mushroom pins are well stuck there. With heat and a special tool that was made with some pins made out of some bolts, we were able to start twisting it. And while twisting, it started to move out a tiny bit, so we kept twisting and started using a wedge and some tapping at the same time as it was twisted to get it to start moving out. The procedure was repeated on the other side, and eventually they both came out. Had secured the upright part to the other side and used the chain block to start folding it out, and here we made a little mistake because it came down with a bang as it moves out from some lips there. It can simply break apart. So the linkage that is responsible, because when you widen it, it should extend a tiny bit, and then you have an option to manually pull it out a little further, and it should stay there. And when you cycle, when these are brand new, I think you do this by hand, just remove some lock things, and you see they have gas cylinders here, but this one has kind of been jamming. I think I know why, but more on that later. It was moved to the garage for further investigation. The extension had kind of fallen out, but we slid it back in. I was a little worried that something was, because it's a lock ring and some things that prevents it from being pulled all the way out, so I wanted to get it apart. My dad had ground away some material so we could get a socket on the top, and there is kind of a hexagon shape that goes into a hexagon hole, but all of that is so worn that it doesn't stop it, so we were able to remove the lock part that would hold it in the extended position. I'm not even gonna put those pieces back in place when we assemble it. There is a spring, and then there is something fancy with a few little metal parts in there that releases when you cycle it up and down, but since it's not being used, it's removed. We added some heat, and I was able to wedge a strip of metal in there in that hexagon part to stop it from spinning, and it was well on there. Big pipe branch that was strapped to the pallet, and that one wanted to still tilt the pallet over, and there it broke. So the nut was rusted in place enough that it snapped that rod. but at least the rod could be pulled out from the bottom now, and the extension from the top. So we could see all of it and see that there it was. I was worried that it was damaged, so it could go up too far, but still it doesn't seem like it, so I'm not really sure. Most of the problem with it being stuck in the up position was probably that lock function did not release as it should, so as that's being removed, the problem should be gone. I also removed the gas cylinders here. I don't think they are the big cause of this jamming. The cylinders, gas cylinders themselves seem to function, but I think it had to do with the bolts holding them in place, because there is no nut holding it in place, and they are a little bit, looks a little bit too long. There are some nuts there, but they are just used as spacers, so it could simply be slid out. But most of the places they have removed these gas cylinders already, so I'm removing them here also. We will use the machine when we cycle them up and down. And here is that lock piece that should allow the extension to be locked, that's just being removed and not refitted. And my dad welded the
Jaha, hur gick det då? Ja, det är nog
pipe
bra.
back on the rod.
Jag är lur på
So
om den svetten ska ge sig med åren. Men
it will be reinstalled like this. Was brought back over, and the lower pin was put in place. And then we tried lifting it up, but realized that this forced it up too far, so it couldn't get in the proper position, so we had to move the machine around and lift on the inner section high enough, and it was held there, and then we used the chain block to the other side to start folding it back up. And you can maybe see that extension, because here it's in the folded out position, that extension goes out a tiny bit, and then the mushroom pins, they were sanded a little, so they went in a lot easier than they came out. They could go back in and the bolts could be tightened. And then we used the chain block to pull it back up to see it. You can see that it starts going down maybe. Spring is coming quickly. We have had some very nice warm days for wrenching. I hope they get the last of the timber out from the forest before the roads go bad. So it's folded back up and it's back into position. My dad tried to use an old-fashioned mode of transportation and lost a few tools trying to come back down. It's called a spark in Swedish. It's very nice for icy roads. You have support and you can just swing your leg and for propulsion. The English word for it would be a kick. They don't work very well in urban areas where they sand everything.